Do you fear that borrowing money is a trap that you can never escape? What if a loan could open a door that your savings alone could never open? What if the very thing you fear could actually be the key to your wealth? Loans can move you ahead 10 years if you use them to build something that lasts 10 years. It is time to stop living in fear and start acting with purpose, because debt does not have to be a burden. When handled with wisdom, precision, and discipline, it becomes a powerful ladder to financial freedom. A loan is a tool. In the wrong hands, it destroys. In the right hands, it multiplies wealth. The wealthy do not fear loans. They master them and turn them into leverage. This audiobook is your definitive guide to understanding that difference and mastering the rules of finance. And remember, the smart borrow to build assets that pay them back, not liabilities that drain them. We are about to unlock the secrets of the wealthy, transforming the way you see every dollar you borrow. If you are ready to change your financial reality and make money serve you, please like this audiobook and subscribe to our channel for more audiobooks on your journey to success. Chapter 1. Borrow for investment, not consumption. Debt is like fire. It is a useful servant but a terrible master. You must understand that the fundamental difference between the wealthy and the financially struggling is not merely the amount of money they earn, but specifically how they utilize debt. You have likely been conditioned by society to believe that all debt is evil, or that avoiding loans entirely is the pinnacle of financial responsibility. This is a simplistic view that keeps people poor. The truth is far more nuanced and requires a shift in your mentality. You must stop viewing a loan as a way to extend your purchasing power for things you cannot afford, and start viewing it as a tool to acquire assets that you otherwise could not control. The first and most critical chapter of your financial education is the absolute refusal to borrow money for consumption. This is not a suggestion. It is a command for anyone who wishes to build genuine wealth. When you borrow money to buy a car that is more expensive than you need, or to go on a vacation that lasts a week, or to purchase designer clothes that will go out of fashion next season, you are committing financial sabotage. You are taking money that has a cost attached to it and putting it into something that immediately loses value. This is a double loss. You are paying interest to the bank, and simultaneously, the item you bought is depreciating. You are burning the candle at both ends, and the inevitable result is that you will run out of financial oxygen. You must realize that consumer debt is the shackles of the modern era. When you finance a lifestyle that your actual income cannot support, you are effectively stealing from your future self to satisfy a momentary impulse today. Every dollar you pay in interest on a credit card for a dinner you ate last month is a dollar that can never work for you again. It is gone forever. The wealthy understand this visceral truth. They never use debt to look rich. They use debt to become rich. This brings us to the only acceptable reason to incur debt: investment. Borrowing for investment means you are using other people's money to acquire an asset that will pay you back. The logic here is mathematical and unemotional. If you can borrow money at an interest rate of 6% and invest that money into a business or a real estate property that generates a return of 12%, you are making a profit on money that does not even belong to you. This is the power of leverage. It is how empires are built. You are using the bank's capital to accelerate your own growth. However, this requires strict discipline and a high level of financial intelligence. You cannot simply guess that an investment will be profitable. You must know it. When you look at a potential loan, you must ask yourself a single, non-negotiable question. Will this debt put money in my pocket, or will it take money out of my pocket? If the answer is that it will take money out, you must walk away immediately. There is no gray area here. A mortgage on a rental property that provides positive cash flow every month after all expenses and loan payments are made is good debt. A loan to expand a business that has a proven track record of sales and needs capital to buy inventory to fulfill orders is good debt. In these scenarios, the debt is self-liquidating. This means the income generated by the asset itself pays for the monthly loan payments, and there is still profit left over for you. The asset is doing the heavy lifting. You are the conductor of the orchestra, not the one carrying the instruments. On the other hand, a car loan for a luxury vehicle is a liability. It feeds on your monthly income. It demands to be fed cash every 30 days, and at the end of the term, you are left with a piece of metal worth a fraction of what you paid. You need to develop a ruthless intolerance for bad debt. Do not try to justify it. Do not tell yourself that you deserve a treat or that you will pay it off quickly. The math does not care about your feelings. The math only cares about interest rates and asset values. If you violate the golden rule of borrowing for investment only, you are voluntarily entering a cycle of poverty. You are working to make the bank rich. Conversely, when you master the art of borrowing for investment, you turn the tables. The bank becomes your partner. They provide the fuel and you provide the engine. You must strip away the emotional desire for instant gratification that drives consumer borrowing. It is a trap designed to keep you working for wages for the rest of your life. Instead, you must cultivate the patience and the strategic vision to only sign your name on a loan document when there is a clear, calculated path to profit. Furthermore, you must understand that the risk profile changes entirely depending on the purpose of the loan. When you borrow to consume, the risk is entirely on you. If you lose your job, you still owe the money for that vacation you took 3 years ago. The debt remains, but the value is gone. When you borrow to invest, if you have done your due diligence correctly, the risk is mitigated by the asset itself. If you bought a rental property properly, the tenant is essentially paying your mortgage. If you invested in equipment that increases your factory's output, the extra production pays the loan. You are insulating your personal income from the obligation. This is why the wealthy sleep soundly with millions of dollars in debt, while the middle class stays awake worrying about a few $1,000s in credit card bills. The wealthy have assets covering their debt. The middle class has only their labor. You must decide which side of the equation you want to stand on. To truly make loans work in your favor, you must become an expert at analyzing the spread. The spread is the difference between the cost of the debt and the yield of the investment. If the spread is positive and healthy, you should theoretically borrow as much as you safely can to maximize that return. If the spread is negative or non-existent, as it is with all consumer goods, you should borrow nothing. It is a binary decision. There is no room for emotion in this calculation. Do not let marketing or societal pressure convince you that debt is a tool for lifestyle enhancement. It is not. It is a tool for asset acquisition. Stick to this rule with unwavering rigidity. If the item does not make money, you pay cash or you do not buy it. If the item generates cash flow, you look for the best financing terms available. This simple yet profound distinction is the foundation of all financial success. By adhering to this principle, you transform debt from a weapon that destroys your future into a lever that lifts you toward financial independence. Chapter 2. Borrow only what you can repay. The borrower is slave to the lender. This ancient wisdom serves as the foundational pillar for the second chapter of our journey, and it is a truth that you must etch into your mind before you even consider walking into a bank. You are about to learn the most critical lesson in the world of finance, which is the art of borrowing only what you can repay. This is not a suggestion. It is a command for your financial survival. When you take on debt, you are selling a portion of your future freedom for present capital, and if you miscalculate that exchange, you will pay a price far higher than the interest rate on your contract. You must approach this transaction with the precision of a surgeon and the skepticism of a judge. The first rule you must internalize is that hope is not a strategy. Before you sign any agreement, you must have a clear, realistic exit strategy that does not depend on miracles or good fortune. You must know exactly how you will escape the obligation you are creating. Most people fail because they borrow based on optimistic future projections rather than their cold, hard reality. They tell themselves that their business will triple its revenue in a year, or they convince themselves that a promotion is guaranteed, or they assume the market will only go up. This is a fatal error. You must never borrow money based on money you hope to earn later. You must borrow based solely on your current ability to service the debt today. Look at your bank account as it stands right now, not how you wish it would look in 6 months. If you cannot afford the payments with the income you have at this very moment, you cannot afford the loan. It is that simple. The future is unpredictable, and building a debt structure on the shifting sands of speculation is the fastest way to destroy your financial life. You must operate with absolute certainty, not vague possibilities. To ensure you remain on the safe side of this equation, you must rigorously calculate your debt-to-income ratio. This is the mathematical reality check that strips away your emotions and leaves you with the truth. You need to take your total monthly debt payments and divide them by your gross monthly income. If this number starts to creep too high, you are walking into a trap. You must ensure that your monthly payments remain comfortable, even if your financial situation tightens. Life does not care about your loan agreement. Emergencies happen, industries change, and unexpected expenses arise out of nowhere. If your budget is so tight that a single flat tire or a medical bill causes you to miss a loan payment, you have borrowed too much. You are living on a razor's edge, and eventually you will fall. This brings us to this concept of over-leveraging, which is the silent killer of wealth. Over-leveraging puts your assets at risk of seizure, and this is a threat you must take seriously. When you pledge collateral, whether it is your home, your car, or your business assets, you are giving the lender the legal right to take that property if you fail to meet your obligations. Imagine the devastation of losing the very asset you were trying to build because you were too greedy or too impatient to wait until you could afford it. You must respect the power of leverage, but you must also fear its consequences. The bank does not care about your personal circumstances. They care about their contract. If you breach that contract because you overextended yourself, the consequences will be swift and merciless. Therefore, you must always maintain a significant margin of safety between what you can borrow and what you should borrow. Just because a lender is willing to give you $100,000 does not mean you should take $100,000. Lenders are in the business of selling debt, and they will often approve you for a limit that pushes you to the absolute maximum of your capacity. Do not fall for this compliment. It is a trap. You must determine your own limit, one that is far below the ceiling the bank sets for you. This gap between what is offered and what you accept is your safety buffer. It is the breathing room that allows you to sleep at night. It ensures that even if interest rates rise or your income dips slightly, you remain in control of your destiny. You must possess the discipline to say no to excess capital. You must have the wisdom to look at a loan application and realize that less is often more. Every dollar you borrow is a dollar that demands to be fed with interest. The more you borrow, the heavier the burden you place on your future self. Your goal is to make loans work for you, not to work for your loans. By strictly adhering to the principle of borrowing only what you can unquestionably repay, you shift the power dynamic back in your favor. You become a master of capital rather than a victim of it. You proceed with confidence because you know that your foundation is solid, your math is correct, and your risk is managed. This is how the wealthy operate. They do not gamble with debt. They utilize it with calculated precision. You must do the same. Do not let ambition blind you to the risks. Be smart, be conservative, and above all, be capable of repaying every single cent you borrow, regardless of what the future holds.
Chapter 3. Understand the power of leverage. You have been told a lie your entire life, that debt is inherently evil, and that the only path to financial safety is to pay for everything in cash. This chapter exists to shatter that illusion and hand you the most potent tool in the financial universe, which is the power of leverage. Leverage is the definitive dividing line between those who work for money and those who make money work for them. It is the difference between linear growth and exponential explosion. When you operate without leverage, You are limited by your own two hands and your own limited capital. You are moving rocks one by one, while the wealthy are using heavy machinery. To understand leverage is to understand that you do not need to own 100% of an asset to enjoy 100% of its benefits. You only need to control it. Smart debt acts as that control mechanism. It allows you to command a large, expensive, and income-generating asset with a relatively small amount of your own money. This is not gambling. This is physics applied to finance. Let us look closely at the mechanics of a mortgage, because this is the most common form of leverage that ordinary people encounter, yet few truly understand its mathematical power. Imagine you have the $100,000 in cash. If you follow the old, fearful advice, you might buy a single property worth $100,000. If that property appreciates by 10% in 1 year, the value becomes $110,000. You have made a profit of $10,000. Your return on investment is exactly 10%. That is a decent return, but it will not make you wealthy. Now, consider the investor who understands leverage. That same investor takes their $100,000 and splits it into 5 separate down payments of $20,000 each. They use the bank's money to purchase 5 properties, each worth $100,000. They now control $500,000 in real estate assets with the same initial cash investment. Here is where the magic of leverage reveals itself. If the market appreciates by the same 10%, each of those 5 houses gains $10,000 in value. That is a total gain of $50,000. You invested $100,000, but you gained $50,000. Your return on investment is not 10%, it is 50%. This is the amplifier effect. The bank does not share in the appreciation of the property. The bank only wants its interest payments. The entire increase in the asset's value belongs to you. You have effectively used other people's money to supercharge your own wealth. By using leverage, you have multiplied your efficiency by a factor of 5. This is how empires are built. You cannot save your way to this level of growth. You must leverage your way there. However, this power demands respect, and it demands intelligence. The premise of using leverage successfully relies entirely on the concept of positive arbitrage. This means the asset you purchase must produce more income than the cost of the debt used to acquire it. If you borrow money at an interest rate of 5% to buy an apartment complex that generates a yield of 8%, you are profiting on the spread. You are using the bank's money to pay the bank back, and you are keeping the difference. This is free cash flow generated from money that was never yours to begin with. This is the ultimate goal of the financial master. You must detach your personal labor from your income. When you use leverage correctly, the asset works 24 hours a day. The tenant pays the rent pays the mortgage, and the surplus flows into your pocket. You are literally creating wealth out of thin air by structuring a deal where the numbers align in your favor. You must also understand that inflation is the silent partner of the leveraged investor. When you take out a 30-year fixed-rate loan, your payment remains the same in nominal dollars for 3 decades. However, the value of the dollar decreases every single year due to inflation. This means you are repaying the loan with cheaper and cheaper dollars as time goes on. Meanwhile, the value of the asset usually rises with inflation, and the rent you charge tenants certainly rises with inflation. This creates a widening gap between your fixed debt cost and your rising income. This is why the wealthy love long-term, fixed-rate debt. It is a hedge against the devaluation of currency, while savers are losing purchasing power every day. Their money sits in a bank account. Debtors who own assets are seeing their real debt burden shrink while their asset value grows. Do not mistake this advice for permission to be reckless. Leverage is a double-edged sword that cuts both ways with equal indifference. If you use debt to buy liabilities that consume cash, you will destroy your financial future faster than you can imagine. If you use leverage to buy an asset that drops in value, your losses are also amplified. If you put 20% down and the property value drops by 20%, you have lost 100% of your equity. This is why the chapter title emphasizes smart debt. Smart debt requires due diligence. It requires that you run the numbers conservatively. It requires that you have cash reserves to weather vacancies or repairs. You cannot enter the arena of leverage with hope. You must enter with calculation. You must be precise. Ultimately, the refusal to use leverage is a decision to stay small. It is a decision to let the fear of risk outweigh the desire for growth. The banking system is designed to lend. The tax code is designed to reward borrowers who invest in the economy. By refusing to engage with credit, you are swimming upstream against the currents of the modern financial world. You must shift your identity. Stop seeing yourself as a consumer who borrows to spend. Start seeing yourself as a capitalist who borrows to acquire. When you master the power of leverage, you stop being a slave to money, and you become its master. You control the asset, you control the cash flow, and you control the appreciation. That is the definition of financial power. Chapter 4. Channel income increases into debt repayment. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who does not pays it. This profound insight attributed to Albert Einstein perfectly encapsulates the battlefield you are currently standing upon. You are in a war against interest, and the weapon you must wield with absolute ruthlessness is your surplus income. This chapter is not a suggestion. It is a command for those who wish to escape the gravitational pull of perpetual poverty. We are discussing the strategy of channeling every single cent of your income increases directly into debt repayment. This is where the average person falters, and this is where the wealthy individual takes control. When you receive a salary raise, a substantial bonus, or any form of unexpected capital, you will face a defining test of your character and financial intelligence. The world around you will scream that you deserve a reward. Marketing campaigns will tell you that you have earned the right to upgrade your car, buy more expensive clothes, or move into a larger apartment. You must reject this narrative entirely. The moment you allow your spending to rise in parallel with your income, you have fallen victim to lifestyle creep, which is the single most effective trap designed to keep you working for lenders for the rest of your life. You must understand the mechanics of the loan you are holding. In the early stages of any significant loan, particularly a mortgage or a business loan, the vast majority of your monthly payment is not reducing your debt. It is merely paying the interest. You are essentially renting the money, not paying it back. The bank has front-loaded their profit to ensure they get paid first. However, you have the power to break this cycle. Every single dollar you pay above the minimum required payment attacks the principal balance directly. When you attack the principal, you are not just reducing the debt by that specific amount. You are eliminating all the future interest that would have accrued on that dollar for the remaining years of the loan. This is a mathematical miracle that works in your favor. If you receive a raise of $500 a month, and you add that entire amount to your loan payment, you do not just pay off $500 of debt. You delete years of payments from the back end of the loan schedule. You are literally buying your freedom and purchasing your time back from the financial institution. Do not be seduced by the illusion of liquidity. Many people make the fatal error of thinking that they should keep their bonus cash in a savings account while they continue to pay high interest on a loan. This is financial illiteracy. If your loan charges you 7% interest and your savings account pays you 2% interest, you are losing money every single day. You hesitate. By directing that extra capital toward your loan principal, you are effectively guaranteeing a return on your money equivalent to the interest rate of the loan. There is no investment in the stock market that can guarantee you a risk-free return of 7 or 10%. Paying down your debt is the only guaranteed investment available to you. It is a risk-free, tax-free return that strengthens your net worth instantly. You must view your debt as a guaranteed loss that you have the power to stop. The discipline required to execute this strategy must be ironclad. When that extra money hits your bank account, you must not let it sit there. You must not negotiate with yourself. You must not think about what else you could buy. You must transfer it to the lender immediately. If you wait, you will find a reason to spend it. This approach requires you to maintain your current standard of living despite having more resources. You must continue to live exactly as you did before the raise. Your neighbors should not know you got a promotion. Your clothes should not change. Your car should remain the same. The only thing that changes is the speed at which your loan balance plummets toward zero. This is the essence of delayed gratification. You are sacrificing the temporary pleasure of a lifestyle upgrade today for the permanent peace of total financial sovereignty tomorrow. Consider the psychological impact of this aggressive repayment strategy. Debt is not just a financial number. It is a psychological weight. It restricts your options. It forces you to stay in jobs you dislike because you have payments to make. It keeps you awake at night. By channeling your income increases into repayment, you are aggressively removing this stressor from your life. You are reclaiming your mental energy. Furthermore, you are proving to yourself that you are in control. You are demonstrating that you are not a slave to your impulses or to the banking system. This builds a financial muscle that will serve you for the rest of your life. Once the debt is gone, that entire stream of income, your base salary plus all the raises and bonuses you used to pay off the debt, suddenly becomes yours to keep. That is the moment the real explosion of wealth occurs. But you will never reach that point if you consume your seed corn before it has a chance to grow. You must also be wary of the banks themselves. They do not want you to do this. They want you to pay the minimum. They want you to stretch the loan out for as long as possible, because that is how they maximize their revenue. When you pay off a 30-year loan in 15 years, the bank loses money that they expected to collect from you. Do not feel bad for them. Your goal is to minimize their profit and maximize your own net worth. By refusing to succumb to lifestyle creep, you are opting out of the consumerist rat race. You are deciding that your financial freedom is more important than looking rich to strangers. This is a lonely path because most people will not understand it. They will tell you to enjoy your money. They will tell you that you only live once. You must ignore them. You are playing a long game. You are building a fortress of solvency that will stand the test of time. Therefore, make the commitment today. The next time money flows into your life unexpectedly, or your employer rewards your hard work with a raise, do not look at it as an opportunity to consume. Look at it as ammunition. Load that capital into your cannon and fire it directly at your loan principal. Do not keep a penny of it for entertainment. Do not use it to justify a vacation. Send it all to the creditor and watch the balance fall. Repeat this process with ruthless consistency. The speed at which you will eliminate your debt will shock you. The interest savings will be massive, and the feeling of knowing that you used your success to buy your freedom rather than more clutter will be the greatest reward of all. This is how you win. This is how you make the loan work for you. You dominate the debt until it disappears. Chapter 5. Distinguish good debt from bad debt. Here is the full chapter text, written with the authoritative, sharp, and experienced tone you requested. It follows your formatting constraints. No numbered lists, no abbreviations, every contraction is expanded, and a word count exceeding 700 words. The rich use debt to leverage their way to wealth, while the poor use debt to finance their own destruction. The difference is not in the money, but in the mindset. You must stop viewing debt as a single, monolithic enemy, because that is the perspective of the financial amateur. You must understand that debt is merely a tool, and like a loaded firearm, it can either protect your household or it can result in a fatal injury, depending entirely on which direction you point it. The vast majority of society has been brainwashed into fearing all forms of borrowing. Or worse, they have been seduced into using borrowing for the wrong reasons. To master the game of money, you must ruthlessly distinguish between good debt and bad debt, with zero emotional attachment. You must look at every single liability on your balance sheet and ask yourself a simple, binary question. Does this debt put money in my pocket, or does it take money out of my pocket? There is no middle ground here, and if you try to justify a bad debt as a necessary evil, you are already losing the game. Let us speak clearly about the cancer that is bad debt. Bad debt is any money you borrow to purchase a liability that depreciates in value. This is the financial equivalent of setting your future hours of labor on fire. When you use a credit card to purchase clothes, vacations, or dinners, you are mortgaging your future freedom for a fleeting moment of gratification. You are agreeing to pay interest on something that will have zero value in a month, yet you will be paying for it for years. This is not just a financial error. It is a form of voluntary enslavement to the bank. The most dangerous form of bad debt that people justify is the car loan for a luxury vehicle. You convince yourself that you deserve it or that you need a reliable mode of transportation, but the moment you drive that vehicle off the lot, it loses a significant percentage of its value. You are paying interest on an asset that is rotting away every single day. You are paying the bank for the privilege of losing money. You must eliminate this behavior immediately if you ever hope to be wealthy. If the item does not generate income, you should not borrow money to buy it. It is that simple. On the other side of the equation lies the powerful instrument known as good debt. Good debt is debt that someone else pays for you. This is the secret that the wealthy understand and the middle class ignores. When you borrow money to acquire an asset, such as a rental property. You are using the bank's money to secure a stream of cash flow. If you take out a mortgage on an apartment building, and the rent from the tenants covers the mortgage payment, the insurance, the taxes, and puts $500 of pure profit into your pocket every month, that is good debt. You have used leverage to control a high-value asset with very little of your own money. The tenant is the one actually paying off the principal and the interest, not you. You are essentially using the bank's capital to build your own net worth. This debt is not a burden. It is a partner. It works for you while you sleep. Consider the efficiency of borrowing for business expansion or education. If you borrow money to buy a piece of equipment that makes your factory produce twice as many products in half the time, the debt pays for itself 10 times over. The interest rate on the loan becomes irrelevant if the return on investment is significantly higher. If you borrow money to gain a specialized skill that guarantees you a high-income career, that is an investment in your own human capital. However, you must be brutally honest with yourself. A degree that does not lead to a high-paying career is bad debt disguised as an investment. You cannot blindly assume that all education is good debt. You must run the numbers. You must calculate the return on investment. If the math does not work, the debt is bad, regardless of how noble the intention may seem. Furthermore, you must understand the tax implications that separate the winners from the losers. The tax code in almost every developed nation is written to reward producers and investors while punishing consumers. The interest you pay on bad debt, such as your personal credit card or your personal car loan, is paid with after-tax dollars. You have to earn the money, pay income tax on it, and then pay the bank. It is the most expensive way to live. However, the interest on good debt is often tax-deductible. The government effectively subsidizes your investment activities. When you own rental real estate or a business, the interest payments are expenses that lower your taxable income. This means that borrowing money to get rich is actually cheaper than borrowing money to look rich. You are legally allowed to use the cost of your debt to pay fewer taxes, which creates a virtuous cycle of wealth accumulation. You need to take an inventory of your financial life today. Do not wait for tomorrow. Look at every loan you hold. If you have bad debt, you are bleeding. You must attack it with a vengeance. You must liquidate liabilities if necessary to pay off that debt. Sell the car that is too expensive. Cut up the credit cards that tempt you to spend. Stop financing a lifestyle you have not earned. At the same time, you must not be afraid to take on good debt when the opportunity arises. Do not let the fear of debt stop you from acquiring assets. The goal is not to be debt-free. The goal is to be financially free. There is a massive difference. A person with zero debt and zero assets is safe, but they are not wealthy. A person with millions in good debt and tens of millions in assets is wealthy. You must have the courage to leverage capital, but you must have the discipline to never use that leverage for consumption. Ultimately, making loans work for you requires a level of maturity that most people simply do not possess. It requires you to delay gratification. It requires you to suppress your ego. It requires you to stop trying to impress your neighbors with toys you cannot afford and start impressing your accountant with assets that generate cash. You must become a master of allocation. Every dollar you borrow must have a mission. It must be a soldier sent out to capture more territory for your financial empire. If the dollar you borrow is not bringing back friends, do not borrow it. You must control the debt, or the debt will control you. Distinguish between the two with absolute clarity. Eliminate the parasites that drain your wallet, and nurture the investments that feed your future. This is the only path to true financial sovereignty. Chapter 6. Avoid refinancing traps. You must listen very carefully, because the financial industry is designed to keep you in debt forever, and refinancing is often the bait they use to trap you. You are likely looking at your current loan and feeling the weight of the monthly payments, and suddenly a banker or an advertisement offers you a lifeline. They promise you lower monthly payments and a slightly lower interest rate, and it seems like a gift from the heavens. Do not be a fool. You must understand that banks are not charities, and they do not offer refinancing packages to help you become wealthy. They offer them to ensure you remain their servant for another decade. The moment you sign those refinancing papers without a rigorous mathematical analysis, you are often committing financial suicide in the long run. You are trading a temporary feeling of relief for a permanent loss of wealth. The first illusion you must shatter is the obsession with the monthly payment amount. This is the primary trick lenders use to manipulate the financially illiterate. They will show you that your payment will drop by $200, and your brain immediately calculates what you can buy with that extra money. However, you must look at the total cost of the loan. When you lower a monthly payment, you are almost always extending the duration of the loan. You are taking a debt that you were scheduled to pay off in 10 years and stretching it out over 20 years. You are choosing to remain in shackles for a longer period just to have a little more cash in your pocket today. This is not financial strategy. This is weakness. You are choosing comfort now at the expense of your future freedom. Furthermore, you must consider the brutal reality of amortization tables. In the early years of any loan, the vast majority of your payment goes toward interest, not the principal. You spend years fighting to chip away at the actual debt. When you refinance, you often reset this clock. You go back to the beginning of the amortization schedule, where your payments are once again dominated by interest. You effectively throw away the progress you made in the earlier years of your original loan. The bank loves this because they get to collect the front-loaded interest from you all over again. You are running on a treadmill, sweating and working hard, but the moment you refinance, you step off and move the treadmill back to the starting line. You must realize that staying the course, even when it is painful, is often the only way to actually defeat the principal balance. We must also discuss the hidden costs that the glossy brochures do not highlight. Refinancing is expensive. It involves closing costs, origination fees, appraisal fees, and legal fees. These are thousands of dollars that are either paid upfront or, more dangerously, rolled into the new loan balance. If you roll these costs into your loan, you are now paying interest on the fees you paid to get the loan. It is a compound layer of waste. You must calculate the break-even point. If it takes you 5 years of lower payments just to recoup the closing costs of the refinance, and you plan to move or pay off the loan in 4 years, you have literally thrown money into a fire. You must not ignore these friction costs because they eat away at any theoretical savings the lower interest rate might offer. There is also a dangerous psychological aspect to refinancing that you must confront. When you refinance to lower your pressure, you destroy your financial discipline. You signal to your subconscious mind that whenever things get difficult, You can just restructure the debt rather than paying it off. This mindset is poison to wealth building. The pain of a high monthly payment is a powerful motivator. It forces you to budget, to economize, and to focus on increasing your income. When you remove that pain via refinancing, you become complacent. You lose the urgency required to become debt-free. You begin to view debt as a permanent fixture in your life, rather than an enemy that must be eliminated. You must maintain the intensity of your original repayment plan. Let us look at the pure mathematics of the term extension. Imagine you have 15 years left on a mortgage at 6% interest. You refinance to a 5% interest rate, which sounds attractive, but you reset the loan to a 30-year term. Even though the rate is lower, the fact that you are paying interest for an additional 15 years means the total amount of money you give the bank will be significantly higher. You will end up paying tens of thousands of dollars more for the same house. Is that a victory? No, that is a defeat disguised as a discount. The lower rate is irrelevant if the time horizon is expanded excessively. Interest is the cost of renting money, and the longer you rent it, the more you pay, regardless of the daily rate. The only time you should ever consider refinancing is when the mathematical savings are undeniable and substantial. This means the interest rate drop must be massive, and you must not extend the term of the loan. In fact, the only smart way to refinance is to secure a lower rate, but keep your monthly payment exactly the same, thereby shortening the term of the loan. However, most people do not have the discipline to do this. They take the lower payment and spend the difference. You must be different. You must be smarter. Unless you can prove on a spreadsheet that the total interest paid over the life of the new loan, including all fees, is significantly lower than your current path, you must stay away from the refinancing trap. Stick to your original plan with iron determination. Do not let the siren song of lower monthly payments lure you into the rocks. Your goal is not to be comfortable while in debt. Your goal is to get out of debt. Every time you refinance, you are usually pushing that finish line further away. Accept the struggle of the current payments, fight through the amortization schedule, and refuse to pay the bank a single penny more than you originally agreed to. This requires grit, it requires vision, and it requires the ability to say no to an easy option that is actually a trap. Keep your eyes on the horizon of total financial freedom, and do not let administrative fees and extended terms steal your victory. Chapter 7. Build an emergency fund before borrowing. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Benjamin Franklin. You must understand that entering into the world of debt without a fortification of cash is an act of financial negligence that borders on recklessness. Before you even consider signing a loan agreement or approaching a bank for capital, you must have a fully funded emergency fund in place. This is not merely a suggestion or a polite recommendation for your financial well-being. It is an absolute, non-negotiable requirement for anyone who wishes to survive the brutal reality of the economic world. If you choose to ignore this fundamental rule, you are building a house of cards that will inevitably collapse the moment the wind blows. An emergency fund is not an investment account, nor is it a savings jar for your next vacation. It is a survival mechanism. It is the only barrier standing between you and total financial ruin when life inevitably throws a crisis in your direction. You must realize that the bank does not care about your personal tragedies. The lender does not care if you lose your job, if your car engine fails, or if a medical emergency drains your checking account. The lender cares only about the contract, and the contract demands payment on a specific date, regardless of your circumstances. When you take on a loan, you are creating a fixed obligation in a world defined by variable events. You are promising to pay a specific amount of money every single month, but your income and your expenses are never truly guaranteed to remain stable. This creates a dangerous mismatch that can destroy you if you are not prepared. Without a separate cash reserve, you have zero margin for error. If your income stops for even 1 month, or if an unexpected expense arises that equals your loan payment, you are instantly in a crisis. This is where the trap opens up beneath your feet. Without liquidity, you cannot service your debt. When you cannot service your debt, you do not just lose money. You lose your reputation, your credit score, and eventually, the very assets you were trying to acquire. The emergency fund acts as a shock absorber. It ensures that when the unexpected happens, you can continue to function. You can continue to make your loan payments without panic and without missing a beat. This liquidity buys you time, and in the world of finance, time is the most valuable commodity you can possess. Consider the catastrophic scenario that unfolds when you borrow without this buffer. Imagine you have taken out a substantial loan for a business venture or a mortgage. Suddenly, the economy shifts and your revenue drops, or you face a personal crisis that requires immediate cash. If you have no emergency fund, you are forced into a corner. You will look for money anywhere you can find it. This desperation makes you the perfect victim for predatory lenders. You will be forced to take out high-interest loans, use credit cards with exorbitant rates, or engage in payday lending just to pay the monthly installment of your original loan. You are now borrowing money to pay for borrowed money. This is the beginning of a death spiral. The interest compounds upon interest, the fees pile up, and the hole gets deeper with every passing day. What started as a minor financial hiccup creates a chain reaction that leads to bankruptcy. You could have avoided this entire nightmare if you simply had 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting in a liquid cash account. The emergency fund stops the bleeding before the wound becomes fatal. You must also understand that cash gives you psychological power and clarity. When you have a reserve of money, you make decisions based on logic and strategy, not fear and desperation. A borrower who has 6 months of cash in the bank sleeps soundly at night. A borrower with 0 savings lives in a constant state of anxiety. This anxiety clouds your judgment. It makes you impulsive. It makes you accept bad terms and make short-sighted decisions that hurt your long-term wealth. Furthermore, an emergency fund protects your investments. If you do not have cash, you may be forced to sell your valuable assets at the worst possible time just to cover a short-term debt obligation. You might have to sell stocks during a market crash or sell real estate at a loss because you need liquidity immediately. This destroys your wealth accumulation. If you had an emergency fund, you would leave your investments untouched, allowing them to recover and grow while you use your cash reserve to handle the crisis. Do not deceive yourself into thinking that access to credit is the same as having cash. A credit line can be cut off by the bank at the exact moment you need it most. During economic downturns, banks often reduce credit limits and tighten lending standards. If you are relying on a credit card as your emergency fund, you are placing your safety in the hands of an institution that puts its own interests first. Cash is king because cash is under your control. It is immediate, it is liquid, and it is accepted everywhere. You must discipline yourself to build this fund before you sign the loan papers. It requires patience. It requires sacrifice. You may have to delay your purchase or your investment for a few months or a year while you save this money. Do not let impatience drive you into danger. The market will always be there. The opportunities will always exist. But if you enter the arena without protection, you will be wiped out. Therefore, the rule stands firm. Calculate your monthly expenses, including the new loan payment you intend to take on. Multiply that number by 6 until you see that amount sitting in a separate, accessible bank account. You are not ready to borrow. Do not rationalize your way out of this. Do not tell yourself that your job is secure or that you are lucky. Luck is not a strategy. Hope is not a financial plan. The emergency fund is your insurance policy against the unpredictable nature of life. It transforms a potential disaster into a mere inconvenience. It allows you to be a master of your debt rather than a slave to it. Build the fund. Secure your foundation. Only then do you have the permission to leverage other people's money for your own gain. Anything less is gambling, and the house always wins against a gambler who has run out of chips. Be smart, be prepared, and do not borrow a single cent until you have the cash to weather the storm. Chapter 8. Stick to your budget. You must understand that the moment you signed the papers to take out a loan, you entered into a battlefield where the only weapon that matters is your discipline. The financial world is not designed to hold your hand or to forgive your mistakes. It is a cold and mathematical system that rewards precision and ruthlessly punishes negligence. This chapter is the most critical component of your financial survival because it addresses the fundamental mechanism that controls your destiny. That mechanism is your budget. You might think that a budget is a simple list of income and expenses, but you are wrong. A budget is a strategic battle plan. It is the iron wall that stands between you and bankruptcy. It is the only tool that ensures the loan you have taken remains a servant to your ambitions rather than becoming a master that enslaves your future. If you do not have a budget, you are driving a car at full speed with your eyes closed, and the crash is not a possibility. It is an inevitability. You must abandon the childish notion that budgeting is restrictive or boring. Budgeting is the act of telling your money exactly where to go instead of wondering where it went. It is the ultimate act of control. When you have debt, you do not have the luxury of financial ambiguity. You must know the location and the assignment of every single penny that flows through your hands. The first rule of engagement in this chapter is to completely reframe how you view your loan repayment. Most people make the catastrophic error of treating their loan payment as a variable expense or something they address after they have satisfied their lifestyle desires. This is the path to ruin. You must treat your loan repayment as a mandatory fixed cost, identical in importance to the rent that keeps a roof over your head or the food that keeps you alive. It is not an optional expense that you pay if you have money left over at the end of the month. It is the first check you write. It is the first transfer you authorize. You must structure your financial life so that the loan repayment is deducted from your resources before you even have the chance to consider spending money on anything else. This requires a psychological shift from being a consumer to being a capital allocator. When you view the repayment as mandatory, you strip away the temptation to skip a month or to pay less than you should. You remove the element of choice, and by removing choice, you remove the possibility of failure. The loan agreement is a contract, and you must honor that contract with the same severity as you would honor a promise to save your own life. If you do not treat the repayment as a fixed, non-negotiable pillar of your existence, the interest will compound, the penalties will accumulate, and the debt will grow like a cancer until it consumes everything you own. You need to understand that the world is actively conspiring to separate you from your money. Every advertisement, every store layout, and every subscription service is designed to break your discipline. This is why you must track every dollar with the intensity of a forensic accountant. You cannot afford to be casual about your spending when you are leveraging debt. A casual approach leads to lifestyle creep, where your spending rises to match your income, leaving nothing for the debt. You must reject this. You must track the coffee you buy in the morning, the digital subscriptions you rarely use, and the impulse purchases that seem insignificant in the moment, but add up to a mountain of wasted capital over a year. Each dollar you spend on unnecessary consumption is a dollar that could have attacked the principal balance of your loan. When you waste money while holding debt, you are not just spending that cash. You are paying interest on the money you did not use to pay down the loan. The cost of that wasted dollar is the dollar itself plus the interest it would have saved you. This is the mathematics of wealth that the poor do not understand. By tracking every single transaction, you gain total visibility into your financial health. You identify the leaks in your ship. You see exactly where you are bleeding resources, and you have the power to stop it. This level of scrutiny is not obsession. It is necessary stewardship. You are the CEO of your own life, and a CEO who does not know their numbers is a CEO who is guiding the company toward insolvency. Let us talk about your creditworthiness, which is perhaps the most valuable intangible asset you possess in the modern economy. Your credit score is not just a number. It is your reputation. It is a numerical representation of your integrity and your ability to keep your promises. When you stick to a strict budget, you ensure that you never miss a payment. This consistency is the bedrock of a high credit score. Why does this matter? Because a high credit score buys you access to cheaper capital in the future. If you destroy your creditworthiness by failing to budget and missing payments, you are effectively placing a tax on your future self. You will pay higher interest rates on your mortgage, your car loans, and any business capital you try to access later in life. A solid budget protects your reputation. It ensures that when the bank looks at your history, they see a pattern of reliability and discipline. This gives you leverage. It allows you to negotiate better terms. It opens doors that are locked to the disorganized and the undisciplined. Do not underestimate the damage a single missed payment can do. It stays on your record for years, a constant reminder of your failure to plan. A strict budget is the shield that protects your credit score from the chaos of life. It ensures that no matter what unexpected expenses arise, the funds for your debt service are already secured, locked away, and ready to be deployed. A solid budget also serves as the ultimate defense against the emotional weakness that plagues so many borrowers. Human beings are emotional creatures, and we are prone to justifying bad decisions. We tell ourselves that we deserve a reward, that we have worked hard, and that one expensive dinner or one vacation will not matter. The budget is the cold, hard logic that counters these emotional lies. When you have a strict budget, you do not have to rely on your willpower in the heat of the moment. The decision has already been made. The budget says no, and therefore the answer is no. This prevents you from diverting funds meant for debt service into unnecessary spending. It forces you to live within the reality of your financial situation rather than the fantasy of the lifestyle you wish you had. You must accept that while you are in the repayment phase, your lifestyle may need to contract. You may need to sacrifice temporary pleasures for permanent security. The budget is the tool that enforces this sacrifice. It keeps you honest. It does not care about your feelings. It cares about your solvency. By adhering to the numbers, you remove the emotion from money management. You stop acting on impulse and start acting on principle. This is how you ensure that the loan remains a tool for growth. If you spend the loan proceeds on liabilities and then fail to pay the debt, the loan becomes a burden. But if you stick to the budget, allocate capital efficiently, and meet every obligation, the loan acts as a lever that lifts you up. You must also realize that a budget is dynamic, not static. It requires constant attention and adjustment. Prices rise, incomes fluctuate, and emergencies happen. A disciplined borrower reviews their budget not once a year, but every single week. You must sit down with your numbers and confront the reality of your position. If your electricity bill was higher than expected, you must find that money from another category. You do not take it from the loan repayment category. That category is sacred. You take it from your entertainment budget or your dining budget. You must be ruthless in your reallocation of resources. If you find that you are consistently running a deficit, you must take drastic action. This might mean selling items you do not need, taking on a second job, or radically downsizing your living arrangements. The budget will reveal these hard truths to you, but only if you are brave enough to look at them. Most people avoid looking at their budget because they are afraid of what they will find. They prefer the comfort of ignorance. But ignorance is expensive. Ignorance is what turns a manageable loan into a financial catastrophe. You must have the courage to face the numbers, no matter how ugly they are, and the discipline to do what is necessary to fix them. Furthermore, A strict budget allows you to harness the power of velocity. When you have total control over your cash flow, you will often find that you can squeeze out extra money. You might find that by cooking at home instead of eating out, you save several $100s a month. A disciplined borrower does not spend this surplus. They throw it at the principal of the loan. This is how you accelerate your path to freedom. By paying more than the minimum, you attack the balance that generates the interest. This creates a snowball effect where the amount of interest you pay decreases every month, allowing more of your payment to go toward the principal. You cannot execute this strategy without a budget. Without a budget, that extra money simply disappears into the void of daily consumption. With a budget, every dollar is a soldier that you command. You direct your surplus to the front lines of your debt, decimating the obligation years ahead of schedule. This is the difference between those who struggle with debt for decades and those who use debt to build empires. The difference is not luck. The difference is the rigor of their budgeting process. Let us delve deeper into the concept of the loan as a tool for growth. Leverage is a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways. If you use a loan to buy an asset that appreciates, like real estate or a business, and you manage the cash flow with a strict budget, you create wealth. You are using other people's money to increase your net worth. However, this delicate equation relies entirely on your ability to service the debt. If you fail to budget, you might miss a payment even if the underlying investment is sound. This could trigger a default, causing you to lose the asset and the equity you have built. Therefore, the budget is the safety mechanism that protects your investment. It ensures that the cost of carrying the debt never exceeds your capacity to pay. It forces you to maintain liquidity. It forces you to build cash reserves within the budget to handle vacancies, repairs, or business downturns. A budget for a borrower is not just about household expenses. It is a risk management system. It calculates the worst-case scenarios and prepares for them. It ensures that you are never caught off guard. You must cultivate a disdain for waste. In the context of this chapter, waste is the enemy. Every dollar that is not working for you is working against you. When you pay interest on a loan, you are renting money. You are paying for the privilege of using capital that does not belong to you. If you do not have a budget, you are likely renting that money for longer than necessary, which means you are overpaying for the product. A budget helps you minimize the duration of the loan by maximizing your repayment efficiency. It compels you to question every expense. Do you really need that new subscription? Is that brand name clothing item necessary for your survival or your business success? If the answer is no, the money goes to the debt. This requires a level of maturity that is rare in today's society. We are conditioned to seek instant gratification. We are told that we can have it all now and pay for it later. The disciplined borrower rejects this narrative. The disciplined borrower understands that the pain of discipline is far less than the pain of regret. The regret of bankruptcy, of lost assets, of destroyed credit is a heavy burden to carry. The pain of sticking to a budget is merely the effort of paying attention. Consider the psychological peace that comes with a strict budget. When you do not budget, you live in a state of low-level anxiety. You are never quite sure if a check will bounce or if you will have enough for the mortgage. This anxiety drains your mental energy, making you less effective at your job and in your relationships. When you budget, you eliminate this anxiety. You know exactly where you stand. You know that the debt is being handled. You sleep better at night. This clarity of mind allows you to focus on increasing your income, which is the other side of the equation. When you are not stressed about survival, you can focus on expansion. You can look for new investment opportunities. You can perform better at work. The budget frees your mind from the chaos of survival mode. It gives you the stable platform you need to launch your success. It transforms the loan from a source of stress into a manageable line item on a spreadsheet. You stop fearing the mailman or the ringing phone. You regain your dignity. Finally, remember that you are building a habit that will serve you for the rest of your life. The skills you develop while paying off this loan, the meticulous tracking, the delayed gratification, the strategic allocation of capital, are the exact same skills that will make you wealthy. Once the debt is gone, you do not stop budgeting. You simply redirect the flow of money. Instead of sending that mandatory fixed cost to the bank to pay off a loan, you send it to your investment accounts. You continue to live with the same discipline, but now the interest is working for you, not against you. You become the lender, not the borrower. But you can never reach that stage if you cannot master the basics now. You cannot command millions if you cannot manage thousands. This chapter is your training ground. It is the crucible in which your financial character is forged. Do not look for shortcuts. Do not look for easy ways out. There are none. There is only the budget. There is only the discipline to stick to it. There is only the daily grind of making the right choice over and over again until the debt is defeated. Stick to your budget. Treat it as law. Let it be the bridge that carries you from the island of debt to the continent of wealth. Do not deviate. Do not falter. Your financial freedom depends entirely on your ability to execute this simple yet profoundly difficult command.